you probably can secure about 10,000 followers in, 3 to 6 months. So it's not that difficult, in my opinion. Once you're posting regularly, you're engaging, you're adding value, to get to about 10 to 15,000 followers on LinkedIn. At that point is when you can start reaching out to brands and say, hey, I have a smaller audience, but I talk about these topics, and I actually think, based on what I've seen, I have a really engaged audience. We should partner together.
Before we start the show, I have a quick question for you. Is your resume stuck in the rejection pile? At Resume Assassin, I create powerful resumes that showcase your skills, experience, and achievements, getting you noticed by recruiters. I'll also optimize your LinkedIn profile, transforming it into a magnet for opportunity. Visit resumeassassin.com today and take charge of your job search. Visit resumeassassin.com. So today, I've got a guest who's made some serious waves in both the corporate and the creator worlds, Dominick Namis. He's currently the head of business development at NeoPeople, leading their expansion across North America and the Caribbean. Before that, he spent 5 years at Meta, where he helped bring in over $500 million. Yep, you heard that right. But here's what makes Dominick's story just really interesting. He walked away from corporate life to build something of his own. We're going to talk about what it's really like to leave a big company and to step into the creator space, and how he balances that with leading a fast-growing startup. And of course, we'll throw in a surprise topic at the end as well. But before we really jump into it, I want to ask you a question that I ask all of my guests. In 10 words or less, what's the best piece of advice that someone has ever given you?
I might break the rules here.
That's okay.
These are kind of separate pieces of advice, but they're sort of connected. One, there's this, I think it's a quote probably by Einstein, but most quotes, they're just attributed to somebody significant in history, but they may or may not have said it, right? It's been said like a million times. I'm only passionately curious, which I interpret to be, always be curious about the world, about the topics. The irony about knowledge is that the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. Always be passionately curious. And then recently, I've been doing a lot of rewatching of Parts Unknown from Anthony Bourdain and some of his other shows. And I saw a quote recently. I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but it's something like, travel is not a reward for work. Travel is something that allows us to gain knowledge, see the world in a different view. So view travel as not just a reward, but as necessary for knowledge building and experience building.
I love that. And I couldn't agree with your sentiment more with being curious, because I think that that's just like the cheat code to life right there. If you want to continue learning, you want to continue growing, building your relationships with people, the key there is to continuously be curious. That's awesome. Okay, so it's pretty obvious that you are absolutely crushing it at Meta. I mean, $500 million in revenue is just, that's absolutely insane. So what made you make the decision to leave and start something new?
Yeah, so I'll give just the entire story here. I started straight out of school, straight out of college at Meta at 21 years old. I got a referral from one of my professors in university. They knew someone who was working at Meta. He was a significant person in the Meta Austin office, Facebook at the time. I had lunch with them. They gave me a referral. I got the last spot open for what they called at the time partner management on the SMB team. So partner management was working with ad agencies in the small, medium business space. Small, medium businesses are sometimes businesses spending $50,000 per month on Facebook, right? Like in any other company, those are probably like enterprise level businesses, but at Facebook, they consider them SMBs. I spent about 5.5 years there. And around year 4, I was considering moving to my own project. My dad approached me. This is right about COVID, right? Like 3.5 years, 4 years in. COVID's happening. We're all in lockdown. My dad's approaching me and he says, hey, I've been doing my software development thing for the last 20, 25 years, creating all these different softwares for these different governments and companies and all these entities across particularly the Caribbean. He said, I have this product called Neo People. It's an HR payroll solution. And I think many businesses can use it and we can resell it, right? The largest bank in Belize approached him and said, hey, can you develop the software for us? We still do HR and payroll with Excel spreadsheets and pen and paper, right? He developed the software and we're like, hey, we can start reselling this. We have something here. This is very interesting. So I was considering for about a year and a half leaving Facebook, leaving Meta to go work with him on this project. But still, as you know, there's this concept called like the golden handcuffs in the corporate world.
Yeah.
They give you good health insurance. They give you a nice paycheck, pay for happy hours, for team outings, and all the fun stuff, right? And when you're in your early 20s, that stuff is super shiny, super alluring. When you drop the name Facebook or Meta in a random conversation, people's eyes lit up and they want to get to know you. They want to learn more about you. So it was that like prestige, that feeling that just kept me at Meta for a while. Truth be told, I was actually in one of the original huge rounds of layoffs in 2022. That day, 10,000 other people, I think it was actually 11,000. So 10,999 other people were laid off that day. But I had a few months prior to that on my calendar, tentative last day at Meta. I was already thinking about leaving, but my girlfriend at the time, now wife, and my dad talked me out of it. And so I just kept on. The stars sort of aligned. The universe said, hey, you are meant to go do other things. I even got hit up by a couple of recruiters at some other companies, Google, American Express, Deloitte. And I said, thank you so much for the offer to interview. I'm going to take a little bit of time off for the holidays and I'll reevaluate what's my next step in the new year. And at the top of 2023, started my own creator business and then went full-time with my dad at Neo People.
Wow, that's such an amazing story. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I think it's hard, especially when you're in with a big company like Meta, it's hard to be like, yeah, I want to, drop all of this amazing salary where it's predictable revenue, these great benefits, these amazing people and opportunities that I'm working with right now and try to do something on my own. So it sounds like in your case, like you said, the stars kind of aligned and it was just like, man, I guess this was meant to be. This was my next step. So I'm also curious because the corporate life and the creator life are just two totally different beasts. So what's one thing you miss about working at a big company and what's one thing that you never want to deal with again?
One thing that I miss is probably looking to my left and looking to my right and having a Harvard grad next to me and a Yale and a Stanford grad next to me. Like that is something that is very unique and specific to big tech. I mean, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, like they recruit the brightest and most brilliant people in the world, right? Some of my coworkers were the kids of U.S. Congress people. They have been to the Olympics. They represented the USA in the Olympics. They have started multi-billion-dollar companies. Like the network and the people that you're surrounded by daily is absolutely incredible. So I do miss that a little bit. In terms of the creator world, there are also incredibly brilliant and creative people in the creator world. And the one thing that I will say is creators are massive risk takers. Not that folks who are working at Meta and Google are not, but I find the longer you work there, the less risk you're willing to take because of those benefits, because of the cushy lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
You want like you said, predictable income at the end of every month. You want to know that your mortgage is being paid, your fancy cars are being paid, and that just isn't a guarantee when you jump out into the world of entrepreneurship and become a creator.
Yeah, and so you said that, when you were laid off from Meta, you started this creator business. What's that mean? Tell us more about that.
At the top of 2022, I got a bit burnt out at Meta. I got a new manager. Things weren't going so well. I had 4.5 years of what they call exceeding expectations, which put me in like the top 90 percentile of company performance. So I was a really high performer for 4.5 consecutive years. And then with a new manager who was a first-time manager, with some new directors and a bit of like lack of good leadership, I ended up getting the worst performance review I'd ever gotten. And even my manager wasn't even sure like that I should have gotten that review. They basically got feedback from their manager, the director, to say, hey,
I think I'm frozen, Dominic. Do I look frozen on your end?
You are. Yeah, you are.
Yep. Its device is struggling to record. Give me just a minute here. Dang it. Let's see. I have to jump on with a different camera here. All of that should be saved. I'll just have to splice it together. Okay. Yep, you can pick up from wherever you feel the most comfortable.
Okay. So you asked about leaving Facebook, leaving Meta, and starting a creator business. At the top of 2022, I actually got a bit burnt out while at Meta. I had 4.5 years of really strong performance. Things just started to not go so well. Got a new manager, new director, new leadership. Things became a little bit rocky at the start of 2022. And I needed an outlet to just express my thoughts. I realized that LinkedIn had massive distribution, meaning you post something insightful on LinkedIn, they start to show it to a lot of people, right? My post started going viral. One day I asked folks, hey, can I help anyone? Can I give them advice or tips or referral for getting into a big tech job, for getting into a company like Facebook or Meta? And it went just absolutely viral. My phone just started to buzz like crazy. I had to take off notifications. And since then, 3 years ago, I have not had notifications enabled for LinkedIn because every now and then they just start going absolutely crazy.
Jeez.
I think I got like 5,000 connection requests overnight, and my followers just started to balloon and balloon and balloon. By the end of 2022, I had about 50,000 followers on LinkedIn. And so when I was laid off, I even took to LinkedIn to post my the layoff letter, talk about my last day at Meta, moving on to doing new things. I got a massive amount of support, which gave me the confidence to say, hey, let me go and actually make this a business. So in 2023, I actually started to monetize this platform, the creator as a creator. I started to partner with brands to promote resume products, software products, different productivity tools. And by the end of 2023, I made about double what I did while working at Facebook.
Wow, that's amazing. You got into it right at the right time too, I would say, Dominic, because it feels like over the last year, maybe 2 years, there have been an explosion of creators on LinkedIn. Not necessarily people that are making money or having brands pay them to post content and to market their products, but just people who have finally realized, like you did back in 2021, 2022, oh my gosh, LinkedIn is an amazing place to post and to be personable and to drive value to people that are on the platform, because I mean there are over 1 billion people that are actively on LinkedIn, and I think I read a statistic that only still today, even after I've seen this explosion of creators, still only 1% of users on LinkedIn are actually creating content.
That's right. That's right. I actually gave a bit of I was a guest speaker earlier this week at the University of Texas at UT here in Austin. And I have a stat on my presentation that says, hey, LinkedIn has over 1 billion users globally, which is more than Pinterest, Snapchat, and X combined, right? Like it's a massive platform, and folks are just not creating content because in school or in our first job, we were told, hey, get a LinkedIn. It's a thing to do. It's a professional network. At least have a presence on there. And then most of the people just don't update it, just like, only look at it when they're looking for jobs. But it's a massive opportunity to share your knowledge, share what you're working on, and just build a really strong network on LinkedIn. I mean, I have CEOs of Fortune 500 companies that are first connection, right? Like off the top of my head, the CEO of HubSpot, she's connected to me on LinkedIn. And the list goes on and on, right? Because I built up that strong presence, and many of them have interacted with my posts and even left comments, which is
so
really
cool. Yeah. And you said something really interesting to me earlier. You said creators tend to take more risks than people that are working at bigger enterprise companies like Meta. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and maybe give us an example?
I think for one, like I alluded to earlier, the 9 to 5 job is safe, it's secure for the most part, barring some of the rounds of layoffs we've seen in the recent months and recent years. But historically, it's been sort of like corporate America, depending on industries, they vary, but it tends to be a little bit more of a safe bet, right? You get the 401k, you get your biweekly or monthly paycheck, they give you benefits. It's a safe bet, right? You know that the mortgage will be paid, the car will be paid this month. Creators don't know that for sure. Some months you'll make $500, some months you'll make $20,000, right? Sometimes. I have some friends that they're like, hey, I have nothing to lose. I want to go on nice vacations this year. I want to buy a house. I want to get married. So let me put myself out there and let me pitch brands for numbers that I don't necessarily think they'll accept, but let's see what happens. I have a creator friend who she pitched, I believe it was IBM, a massive deal. It was like a $20,000 or $30,000 deal. She's like, they'll never go for this. 2 weeks later, they're signing the contract. They're like, this looks great. And they send her the money, I think up front. as some of these big companies do. She's like, holy cow, I have $30,000 in my bank account. Like IBM just wired me this money.
Yeah. So for those people who have been tirelessly creating content on LinkedIn and they're like, that sounds cool. I want IBM to pay me $30,000. Tell us a little bit more about how she approached or how you've approached some of these bigger companies or even some of the smaller companies to find some of these brand deals.
Yeah. Creator marketing has existed for quite some time now. I mean, some of the OG platforms like YouTube and even Instagram, they have had creators for probably close to a decade at this point. Like creators being those who make content and like make money from that content. So I started to study some of these folks and analyze like what are they doing? Can I go and steal somebody's, or not steal, but borrow someone's media kit, pitch deck? Can I find a template for like an influencer contract online? And I just started to piece all these things together, right?
Yeah.
Create a Stripe link and then put yourself out there. There's some really good emerging marketplaces right now where you can create a profile and say, hey, I'm a creator. This is my portfolio. If you're interested in partnering with me, send me a offer. Let's schedule some time and like let's link up and do this thing. The more you put yourself out there, the more you are visible across these platforms, the higher the likelihood of someone saying, hey, Dom, I follow your content. I know who you are. I've seen you a bunch. I work for this company. We have a little bit of budget. We'd love to test with you. Here's where I am at with my budget. Where are you? We meet somewhere maybe in the middle, or we figure out like a way to come to an agreement and the deal is done, right? Like it is a lot simpler than a lot of people think, but you have to be putting yourself out there. And I'm not perfect as a creator either. Last year I went through a lot of changes. I moved to a new house. I got married. I took some time off in the summer, and that kind of took a big hit on the creator business. Meaning for probably 2 or 3 months, I had close to 0 deals. And so those months just dipped down drastically. I mean, my highest month last year, I think was like February, which was around 35, 40K in a single month.
Wow.
And by September, I probably had $1,000, $2,000 of revenues. As a creator too, you also have to plan for the not so good times and, space out your earnings and not think like, oh, this 30K will just keep repeating itself forever and all is good. It doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah. So don't go buy that, expensive car. If you have one 40K month, it doesn't necessarily mean that is going to happen every single month moving forward.
And one more thing I'd like to add in, one thing that folks don't think about, like this is just the life of entrepreneurs and of creators. There's something called the IRS, right? Like they will want their cut. They'll want their cut as well. So you got to put aside some of that money for tax season. Tax season's coming up here. We're in tax season, actually. And this is when they say, hey, you owe us X amount of money on the money that you made, the revenue that you made as a creator. So in a 9-to-5 job, obviously they have your company withholds funds for taxes and Social Security and all this type of stuff. As a creator, nothing is withheld. So you have to put some money aside yourself. Otherwise, you'll have a massive tax bill and a big surprise come March, April.
You're not speaking from experience, are you?
Well, I think when I first started back in 2023, I didn't fully take it into consideration. So they were like, hey, you owe us a couple $1,000
by the way,
taxes. But I've done some planning and figured stuff out since then.
That's smart. Yeah, I mean that's amazing advice. Anybody that's thinking about becoming a creator, that's definitely something to take into consideration. And so I'm curious, I know you, Dominick, you have a huge following, huge engaged following, I should say, on LinkedIn, over 100,000 followers. But for somebody that is really interested in stepping into that creator space, let's say they only maybe have 3,000 followers, 5,000 followers, but they want to start seeking out some brand deals to kind of get their feet wet. What would you say is a good candidate for somebody to start reaching out to those types of brand deals and to kind of get their feet wet in the space?
Yeah. I've started a bit of a newsletter. I think I'm going to revamp it and be a little bit more consistent with it. But the newsletter is called The Corporate Creator, and it's talking about, moving from the corporate environment to becoming a creator, and perhaps some folks who want to do both at the same time. One of the things I recommend is starting early. What I mean by that is I didn't make a penny from LinkedIn until I got to about 55,000 followers.
Okay.
I actually think there's a massive opportunity for folks who have 8,000, 10,000, 15,000 followers. And it's not that difficult to get to that level of followers. I mean, in your network, just the people you know, university, work friends, what have you, you probably have 1,000, 2,000 people right there. And then you start making a little bit of content 2, 3, 4 times a week, you probably get another 5,000 followers right there, right? You keep that up for a few months, you probably can secure about 10,000 followers in, 3 to 6 months. So it's not that difficult, in my opinion. Once you're posting regularly, you're engaging, you're adding value to get to about 10 to 15,000 followers on LinkedIn. At that point is when you can start reaching out to brands and say, hey, I have a smaller audience, but I talk about these topics, and I actually think, based on what I've seen, I have a really engaged audience. We should partner together. The beauty about LinkedIn too, and all these social networks, is that we've changed from, I think it's like a social graph, they call it, to like a discovery graph. And what that means is, even if you have 15,000 followers, that doesn't mean that you're limited to 15,000 views. On LinkedIn, you can have 15,000 followers and get 1 million views on a piece of content or a video, right? So there's a huge opportunity to be creating content that will reach its way to the masses. And it's especially helpful when you're known for a specific topic. In my case, I was known as like the big tech guy, the Facebook guy, the guy who talked about resumes a lot. And so people found it to be super helpful when I was posting about resumes. And then resume companies, AI resume companies were like, this is a no-brainer. Let's promote our product together and help folks with better resumes and promote our product.
Love it. So it seems like everybody kind of almost glamorizes the creator lifestyle. But what's something that's just way harder than people think?
Consistency. I would say consistency. Every creator out there is like, just post every day, just be consistent. It's easier. It's harder than it sounds, right? Like, it is very difficult to put yourself out there 3, 4, 5 times per week and come up with really great content and do the writing, maybe some editing if you're doing video content. It is hard. I would say try to get some help, right? Hire maybe like a virtual assistant or like a editing team, even if you have to do overseas to keep costs down in the beginning. Try to get some help. Today, 3 years in, I still write 95% of my posts the day of or a few days before. I don't have a super well organized months in advance type content machine that some creators might have, right? Like, I just wake up and I'm like, what's going on in the world today? This thing is happening in the government, this thing is happening in tech, this big headline just popped up. Maybe I should give my point of view on it and just like share it with the world. So consistency is harder than most people would think, but find little tricks and ways of being consistent. And early on, one of the things that helped me a lot was putting myself in a place where my thoughts just flowed freely. And for me, that was daily walks in the morning. Some people might do meditation. Some people might do a little bit of writing. I just went on a walk around the neighborhood for 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles. And the thoughts just kept flowing. And I wrote it down in the notes app. And that was my LinkedIn post for today.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much clarity when you go out and you get some fresh air. I'm the same way. My thoughts tend to flow a lot more freely when I'm out walking my dog in the fresh air. And, another thing that I do is if I'm listening to a podcast or if I have an idea just randomly, I have a notes app where I'll write down my idea. Otherwise, I'll forget about it like a day later. So I have a notes app, and then I also have a Google Doc where I write down all of my thoughts and all of my ideas. And then I can kind of take those and flesh those out and create posts and content based on that.
I love it.
So you're not just making content right now, you're also leading business development at Neo People. So how do you avoid feeling like you have 2 full-time jobs?
I definitely feel like I have 2 full-time jobs right now.
I bet.
It's been a lot. And then last year was especially difficult because I was very much involved in the wedding planning process.
Sure.
In April, and then like honeymoon planning, keeping Neo People going, keeping my brand deals going. It's a lot. It becomes a lot. I would say find a support system. I have a group of creators where we talk about different topics, what's going on in life, brand deals, different posts, probably weekly. We're not as active as we used to be, but we talk about it regularly, and that keeps me inspired, that keeps me motivated, that keeps me going to say, hey, I don't want to give up on this thing. Even though I might be in a bit of a more difficult period in my life, I want to keep this thing going, right? This creator thing. I also have a really strong and supportive team with Neo people who, they're there to support. I've brought on a couple extra hands since last year, just to help with some like administrative stuff, to keep me on task with replying to emails and maybe doing some of the things that I don't enjoy doing as much. And then just finding outlets, like I said, the walking, working out, meditating, different things that take you away from just like work. I also like to travel a lot, and people requires me to travel a lot. Like you mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, I'm responsible for the Caribbean expansion. I went to Barbados 3 times last year, Belize 3 times last year. I'm headed to a small island called Antigua in a few weeks. So I'm back and forth in the Caribbean a lot. Even though I'm based in Texas, here in Austin, I'm back and forth to the Caribbean a lot. I love the Caribbean. I was born in the Caribbean. I'm from the Caribbean. I love going down there. But when I'm there, it's very hard to keep up my LinkedIn stuff. It's very hard to keep up other stuff. And so now I'm bringing on more folks to help me with the consistency, because there have been weeks where I just post 2-3 times and it's just, bad internet connection, time zone differences.
Yep.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yep. Actually, my honeymoon was in Antigua, so I've been there several years ago. But yeah, it was a beautiful island. It's funny, my husband and I brought a football to the island, and everybody that worked at the resort was like, they have a football. They kept calling my husband like Brett Favre. And then we ended up leaving the football when we left because they were like, we can't get these shipped here.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different world. That's really cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So people love to say that corporate skills don't translate to entrepreneurship, but I don't buy that. So what I would say is a corporate superpower that you brought into the creator world that gives you an edge?
I used to believe that, I guess when you have your first job out of college, you tend to believe that however that company operates, however those people operate, must be how the rest of the world operates. That's just not the case, especially in a big company like Facebook. For one, and even before joining, I had this idea of, if you're a multi-billion-dollar company, even $1 trillion company, you must have everything super buttoned up and just like well thought out and planned and just put together. Couldn't be further from the truth. Even the biggest companies in the world are just sometimes waking up and guessing some days, right? Like, yes, they have larger strategic plans and they have directors and VPs who set the vision and the long-term goals and all of that. But on a day-to-day basis, folks are just like sometimes making stuff up and going with the flow and doing their best, right? It's not super like step 1, step 2, step 3, which can be a good and a bad thing. It gives you a little bit of a room for some creativity. It's not just like follow this playbook and you feel like a machine every single day. In terms of transferable skills, there were some, I learned to be a little bit more rigorous in certain things while at Facebook, despite them just figuring stuff out in certain areas. They did have really structured, like we had like weekly status meetings that we would send to our manager to talk about like what we did for that week. We had obviously like quarterly goals, being in a more sales role, right? Like startups sometimes, especially in the early days, they don't have quarterly goals. They don't have weekly status meetings. They don't have regular one-on-ones or check-ins with the team members, right? So coming into the startup world, I started to bring that style into play, and it helped me a lot, especially being remote and away from my team who mostly sits in Belize. I said, hey, I want to do one-on-ones with every single person on this team. Tell me about what you're doing and tell me how I can help. Who can I pick up the phone and call to help you do your job better, right? Or to remove a blocker from you. So those are some of the skills that I brought from the corporate world. And also just this thought of there always will be a solution to every problem. No matter how hard, how difficult the problem is, how big the problem is, there is always a solution. Our CEO, my dad, likes to say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. The more and more I think about that, I think he's right.
Yeah, and I agree. As an entrepreneur, you're going to run into tons and tons of issues. It's just kind of the nature of the beast, but you're absolutely right. There's always a solution. Some solutions may have to be a little more creative than others, but there's always a solution. And I think that especially right now with what I see on LinkedIn and this creator economy and the explosion of, just people wanting to start their own businesses, it seems like so many people just kind of dream of quitting their corporate jobs and working for themselves. So my question for you is, what's a myth about that transition that people don't realize until they're actually in it?
I think a myth is that you will work less, be sitting on a beach, and just like raking
Right.
in money. That's a huge myth. Like
Yeah.
in the first year, I found myself going to bed at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. every night, thinking about what's the post for the next day. How do I pitch this company? How do I like close a brand deal? Doing projections for recurring revenue. I was thinking about it a lot. I was stressing about it a lot. Whereas at Facebook, for the most part, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock comes, I shut my laptop and I go home and I don't think about it at all until 8 a.m. the next day. And there's no folks typically emailing you at midnight, 11 p.m., unless there's a massive, massive fire, which in my case maybe happened once, twice per year. But I would remember regularly, especially with time zone differences. If I'm in Texas and my partner's in California, the brand partner, I remember many times emailing them back and forth at 11 p.m. to get approval to go live the next morning.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I think that people that are in the corporate world, they're like, yes, no more 9 to 5. I don't have to work all the time. And then you step into entrepreneurship and it's like, now you're working from 8 a.m. to, 8 a.m. the next day. It's a 24-hour, 365 type of job.
I will say there's always pros and cons, right? Like
Totally.
I am celebrating now a year of marriage, and my wife and I have been together, like dating and married now for a total of 10 years. So it's a big milestone. And we're taking a trip to Hawaii and Tokyo next week. So I don't have to ask anybody for permission. I don't have to be thinking about my PTO balance and this type of stuff. That's one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. There are a lot of perks. I mean, for me, it was like when I made the transition, I found that, oh, wow, I can actually be really passionate and excited about the thing that I'm working on. And not that I wasn't when I wasn't working for myself, but it's just different. For me, it was a lot more exciting. My creative brain was able to activate and I was able to, do things my way, take more risks, like you said. And, if I failed, it didn't feel like as big of a deal as, maybe if I took this huge risk and I failed within the corporate space. Yeah, so it's very exciting.
You don't have a manager judging you. You don't have a director looking.
Exactly.
Deciding if you get a promotion or not. Like I always jokingly tell my friends, being an entrepreneur means you can give yourself a promotion.
Totally.
What does that mean? That means you could decide to do something, work harder or work smarter, or do something that basically influences how well the business performs. And then you can make the decision to pay yourself more, right? Like, I know so many entrepreneurs who are, though, in reality, a little bit hesitant to pay themselves more to give themselves that promotion, even when they found massive success. But, you have the freedom to make that decision. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship.
Yep, absolutely. So you've seen business from both sides. So the corporate tech giant and then, also this really fast moving startup. So how do you see the creator economy in the startup world colliding in the next few years?
Yeah, we are a fully bootstrapped startup. What that means is that we did not go out and raise a whole bunch of funding like a lot of folks do in Silicon Valley. There are many schools of thought out there. I'm not going to necessarily say one is better than the other. It's just a reality that we've chosen the path of bootstrapping. That means that we don't necessarily have as much disposable income as folks out there raising their Series A, Series B, Series C, what have you. I think that over the next few years, these startups, especially startups who are bootstrapping, growing organically with the revenues from their clients, will need to find more creative ways to stand out in terms of their marketing, their sales, all of it. And I think that avenue will be tapping creators, especially micro creators, right? What can we afford to pay a micro creator $500, $1,000, $1,500 to start to come up with some TikTok videos for us or some Instagram reels or just coming up with some new creative ways to get our name and our brand out there? I think a lot of these startups will start to tap into those avenues in the future. On the flip side, I will tell you that as creators, especially on LinkedIn, you want to look for those Series A, Series B, Series C startups, right? Like when somebody has a headline that they just raised 50 million funding, like raise your hand and say, hey, I'm a creator. I'm available to like blow your stuff up.
Yeah.
Let's partner. And you'll see just some magic happens. These companies have some deep pockets.
Love it. So if you could hop in a time machine, Dominick, and give yourself one piece of advice on your first day at Meta, what would it be?
Start that Roth IRA and 401k sooner. This might
Love
be
it.
one of the most boring pieces of, this is not necessarily financial advice, but this is like my financial take. This might be one of the most boring pieces of like a financial take. When I was 21, and I looked around the room, all the other 21, 22, 23-year-olds, nobody was talking about a Roth IRA and 401k, right?
Yep.
And then COVID hit and the stock market started to boom and folks were talking about like GameStop and AMC and trading and all this crazy stuff. And yeah, I did participate in some of the crazy stuff, made a good amount of money, lost a whole bunch of money. And then I realized, the great Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of all time, he has been right. He is right. He seems to always be right. Just do the boring stuff. Invest in the ETFs, which are a big makeup of like the top stocks, right, in particular industries. Set it and forget it. It's not, as he says, it's not about timing the market, like figuring out when to buy low and sell high and all this crazy stuff. It's about time in the market. And he has had a lot of time in the market. He's now in his 90s. And the longer you have your money just growing and working for you, the more money you will have come retirement and come a period in your life when you're just done with work and want to travel with your partner, with your kids, with your grandkids. I mean, I go to all these resorts in the Caribbean and who's there? It's all older folks, right? Staying at like hotels that are thousands of dollars per night. Of course, they bring us in as clients. We're not necessarily paying out of pocket, but I feel so out of place being the youngest person there. Well, whereas everyone else is like older and actually paying to stay there. It's probably because they did some smart financial moves early on. So that'd be my answer for the time machine.
Yep, I love that. And I can thank my husband for being a geek when it comes to investing and doing those types of things, because I probably should have more interest in it because I do care about investing and saving for my future. But he is very proactive in learning about those types of things and ETFs and Ks and Roth IRAs. I actually just started, recommendation from him, I started listening to the Money Guys podcast. I don't know if you listen to that one, but they have a lot of good tips and advice. So you guys, if you don't have a Roth IRA and you're listening to this is your sign that you should start a Roth IRA, or even if you're working for a company, start contributing the maximum to the 401k that your employer provides if you can. Well, awesome. Yeah.
Other funny answer to your question about the time machine, they started at Meta in 2017. Buy a lot of Bitcoin.
There you go. Yeah, right. Maybe not right now, but you're 2017.
Back in 2017.
So, yeah. Awesome, Dominick. Well, where can we find you on social media?
I'm on LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time. Dominick Namis. Just type it in. You'll see my face on LinkedIn. I'm not as active on Instagram. I have Instagram, more of a personal account. I'm considering starting more of like a business account for Instagram, but we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. I will be releasing episodes every Monday, so be sure to subscribe on the platform that you are watching this, give it a 5-star review, and we'll see you next time.